everybody. It's a new podcast that we're trying to do. Myself, Tom Jones, don't laugh, and Silver.
Hi.
Say your surname.
My name is Silver Sarmel. Pleasure to meet you.
And we are going to be talking to you about art directing, hopefully, because we've got some experience in that regard. And we thought it would be fun to talk a bit about that, because actually there's not a lot of resources for that side of things. Silver, do you want to talk a bit more about the background and why we started doing this? And actually, I should mention the kind of Weekend Warriors umbrella that this is sitting under, which is a really cool thing that Silver's got going on. And this is contributing to that whole world as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to start this specific conversation because, like you mentioned, there aren't many educational platforms for art directors. There's plenty of art directors, but not a lot of education that one can get from online schoolism. I myself learned how to become an artist in the industry by just learning from the internet, and I'd love to contribute to that conversation a little bit. And there's not a lot of conversation what it takes to be an art director specifically, and how to then survive as one once you started your career into the beautiful art of art directing. And I think that would be great to kind of give a little bit back to that. I had a bit about it as well. There's another part of this is that being an art director is very, very competitive. There's only few jobs around, and the de facto status is rivalry instead of cooperation and teaching between art directors. We're always running for the same jobs, or we, if it happens that two art directors work on the same project, which is super rare, we're usually blaming the other for ruining the vision that we had. So I like to kind of like just keep the conversation going about that matter as well, because I don't get the chance to talk to other art directors every day, and doing this weekly with you could be a really cool way of expanding my own mind about it as well.
And if it all goes wrong, we can blame each other, right? So that's
yeah. I'm already blaming you.
Should we say a bit about who we are, where we come from, why we think we can talk a bit about this?
Yeah, please.
Go on then, I'll go first. So I been in the games industry nearly longer than 15 years now, man. Time out there. Whew. So I left university in about 2002 and joined Sony to work on PlayStation stuff. Worked in their Cambridge studio through the ranks, essentially, of environment art, and then into kind of lead art, and eventually became art director on their internal projects. So the last two we did were Killzone Mercenary for PlayStation Vita and Rigs for PlayStation VR. And I was the kind of head art director on both of those titles, which was awesome and quite a ride. And then after that, as is the nature of the industry, sometimes our studio closed, and now I'm doing my own thing. I've got my own studio with another art director. It's all about all the art directors, called Alex, and we created an indie studio called Polygon Treehouse, and we're now making our first adventure game called Rurky, which this is not just some elaborate plug for that, so I'll try and not drop too many.
It'll let you beautifully.
So so that's another side of it, kind of working on my own thing, and taking some of the skills and experience learned from the kind of big studio experience. And I kind of should say, actually, as part of Sony, we the kind of latter years were in conjunction with Guerrilla Games, so there was a lot of crossover there with those guys, which is really interesting insight into how they work, how that kind of culture came across and sat with our team. The pros and cons to that stuff that I'm sure we'll get into in a kind of deeper dive into some stuff. So that's kind of a quick fire overview of who I am.
Cool. I tried uni. I became a college dropout in about a year because back in the day when I started studying this subject matter, there wasn't any industry in Finland where I was raised and grew up, and I jumped into the marketing industry that had a lot of 3D work and post-production work. Worked there for a while until I made a transition into the games industry as a concept artist. First working in little smaller companies like Jagex until finding my way at Crytek for 4-5 years, where I worked on like the Rise games and lots of games that were canceled. Some part of the Crisis mantra, some new IPs, and then I moved to from Crytek. I moved to Berlin to work on mobile games industry, which had just taken off. And worked with Wuga for about 4 years, as first as the art lead, then as a studio art director, and was part of the Black Anvil Studios, like rebranding for there was like a sub studio of Wuga until it was closed down and sold, and then became the studio art director for Snowprint Berlin. Helped create the studio in Berlin and start off its newest IP, and then left the industry and became a consultant, living on the coast of Portugal.
Yeah, now you're a recluse, right? You live with
Yes.
surfers and yoga dudes and gals.
Yes, there's for every house there's at least 3 surfers.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Then I work on lots of projects of my own, from doing more creative writing and doing podcasting and video editing and just interviewing other great artists like Tom here and people outside the games industry as well. Because like one thing for me personally as an artist that had been a little bit sad for the past 10 years is how small the games industry is, even though it's great industry and it moves around so much money and sometimes you feel there's a lot of people working there, but it is tiny compared to the whole world, and I love it that I can now take the opportunity to catch up with people that are outside the games industry and talk to them about art directing and creating and directing and running projects and all that kind of stuff as well, that will help me in the future as well.
Yeah, it's weird. Not to go off on a tangent, it's one of those weird things I think I've noticed as well. Like from coming from a big studio, you think, working with Sony under that kind of umbrella in that world, you'd have access to loads more stuff. And in theory, we did, because there's loads of other first-party studios. Actually, everyone's so busy doing their own thing with such tight deadlines, and it's a bit like, we don't really want to give you our stuff because we want our game to be really good. And we're kind of a family, but kind of in competition. And we were, unfortunately, is the nature of it. Like it's economic based, right? So that it's a business. To make sure your game's good above and beyond everything else. So it was never as easy as I thought it would be to actually speak to other people in other studios or have that kind of common dialogue. And there's only kind of things going indie, a little flag or something to wave every time I say that. That you kind of, there's this much broader world and pool of talent that actually is really receptive to sharing and discussing stuff, and people don't really seem to have the same. I think partly because it's a bigger pool and you can have more games, but also everyone's doing stuff that's so different. You're not necessarily treading each other's toes so much. So I really like that people are, far more willing to share and chat and just be kind of friendly and open. And that's really cool, particularly because I work from home now. So actually being able to have that dialogue with other people and practice talking again, that's important.
Yeah, it's the indie part is very interesting when you compare it to the AAAs. Is you guys probably aren't as concerned about things like NDAs and trademarking your IPs. I mean, of course you are interested of it, but it's not so big part of your whole business that you have to like protect your, marketing avenues. That, if somebody tells that you're working on a game, surprise, then that will somehow ruin your marketing campaigns. And
yeah, we're not quite at the level where we need code names for projects and stuff yet. I think that'd be a bit, OTT. It's not going to suddenly derail a whole marketing plan for a console if our stuff gets leaked. So that's nice.
And what was really interesting for me when I moved to mobile games was that because it started out kind of like the whole industry for mobile games started out really, really tiny with, more like app creating industry instead, and later became more games focused. There wasn't a lot of emphasis into protecting any of the IPs or the projects they were making. It's like, surprise, another shitty game is coming out after 5 months of development or something like that.
Right.
So that was a big cultural shift that I really appreciated when moving to mobile games. That like, not so much paperwork, a lot more looser attitudes when it came to starting a project or finishing a project, because it all cost a lot less. It's not on the indie level, but it's closer to that world, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. When I was at Sony, Gorilla, we were, typically games would take 2 to 3 years as a kind of life cycle. Team size range from like 70 to 120 people. Art team would be anywhere between like 20 and 40 odd, including outsourcing and stuff. So I mean, that's not even that big. That's like a middle-sized studio, but it's still a lot of people trying to work together towards one vision.
So tell me, Tom, the question of the hour: what is an art director?
Smoothly done. So I think the first thing I say is it probably differs from studio to studio and from person to person, but maybe we'll find more about that as we go on. For me specifically, so working on the projects at Sony, it was my job to hold the vision for the game, I guess, to keep that in my head and ensure that the team worked towards that vision, which involved a lot of management and kind of day-to-day direction, as you'd imagine, of their work and setting their work and guiding it to what I felt like the game should look like and be. And for me, that meant me working very closely with the creative director and understanding the design of the game and the requirements of the design and how we could facilitate that through art and make sure that there was a kind of complete package. So at the start of the project, sorry, go on.
I was wondering, like, when you started out as an artist, what was your biggest misconception what being an art director is?
Biggest misconception. I don't know. I mean, I thought there'd probably be more hands-on work for yourself. Like that, I mean, some art directors do far more concept-based, like concept art-based direction, and have the time to do that. That wasn't what I could do because I had so much time was spent on actually managing the team and directing the team that it would have been counterproductive for me to take myself away and try and spend time doing work myself. And B, you kind of get to the point where you go, well, you should hire a team that's kind of better at that stuff than you are.
Mm-hmm.
You need to, my philosophy was anyways, that you kind of need to trust those people, not be, selfish about it and go, well, that's a cool bit of work, I really want to draw that. Go get the concept guys are the ones to do it. Give it to them, tell them what you think, the idea is, and then let them go. And in theory, they'll do a better job than you could have. So I think that was kind of not necessarily a misconception, but I think the realization that took hold of me once I I stepped into that role, as how the best way to manage my time and the team's skill set was to, I guess, enable them to do what they were good at, which is a slightly unglamorous way of putting it, but
it's true.
That's kind of, I think, getting the most out of your team. If you can get everyone working to their maximum capacity, if you can get them kind of creatively involved in a project, pushing it, and feeling like they can contribute ideas, I think you're in a really good place. It's very easy to say and not actually that easy to do, unfortunately, because of, you know, numerous different things, whether that's the kind of clash of design and art or people's own preferences. You know, not everyone gets a say in what game they work on, particularly at Sony when we did lots of different projects back to back. You potentially could be working on a shooter one year, and then the next year you're working on a game like, you know, Little Big Planet or something. Both awesome, but different stylistic tastes. So I think that was a challenge for people. So yeah, I think that's kind of what the role was for me, and the other part of that is actually dealing with, you know, external like layers in terms of the heads of Sony, other in, you know, marketing, and perhaps other studios, and helping to sell that, as well as actually helping to advertise the game and market it, and speaking to press, and being able to talk about what the game is, and all that side of stuff. So there's a lot, actually, when you kind of dig down into it. And I think particularly where I was, because I think in some studios you might have like a studio manager, or you might have an art manager who are more focused on team morale and you know, then actually being able to expand their skill set and development and that side of things. We didn't really have that, so that was kind of fell under my umbrella a little bit as well. So there was a lot to juggle, and I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I think you're much better off actually being able to split it and have people focusing on specific things. But, you know, that costs more money and needs a big team and all that stuff as well. So it's not always ideal. Yeah, that was pretty rambling, but
it's good. It's good.
Back to some stuff. How about you? You were talking about studio director, so that must be slightly different.
Well,
studio art director, I should say.
I guess so. I mean, to me, it just felt like a fancier way of saying an art director. It just means that you're responsible for the success of the whole studio as well, and not only the one game that you're working on. Which means only that, you know, you have to just tackle the studio vision at the same time as you're doing the game vision, because I always wanted to be in the game as well. I would have been a very unhappy art director if I'd been only overseeing a studio and then saying like, okay, now we get an art director for this game and an art director for that game, and I'll just like be the boss or whatever. That would have been very boring for me. I would have just left. And another thing is that I think it's more like a self-preservation thing. That I know that if I would have ever become one of the art directors who only manages other artists, I'd start losing the respect of my most hardworking artists pretty fast, because, you know, artists are very, very vicious people, and the moment we see that somebody's not making art anymore, they kind of like fall off the pedestal, and it becomes harder to lead a group like that, who needs to also realize that you understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult balance, isn't it? Actually, being able to give someone direction and have them take it, and kind of respect where you're coming from, and think, okay, well, I trust this person and what they're telling me to do, so I'm going to give it a go. That's like you say, if you're not doing your own work all the time, or you can't hold something up and show it like, hey, this is why I think I have an opinion that is valid. That's difficult. I think it helped, like from my point of view, I think it helped that I'd kind of worked my way up within the studio. I think that showed some, level of aptitude. But I think that is probably an underlying. I mean, it's true of all artists, I imagine, whether they admit it or not, is an underlying insecurity about their own quality, how good they are, and I think that probably persists all the way through, even if you're, directing other people.
It never goes away. You just find other reasons to be insecure.
But I think there's a danger it almost becomes more prevalent if you're spending less time doing your own thing and directing other people who are doing like amazing stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of go like, yeah, should I be telling this person what to do? That's awkward. But I think that sometimes it goes back to the, actually involving them and asking their opinion as well, and recognizing that they are really good. But it is a fine line.
Yeah, I mean, also depending on how many people you have the team or in the studio as well, it becomes easier to kind of split people into mini art directors with their own responsibilities that they can own freely, and you can yourself focus on the things that you can own most confidently, and keep the project running most smoothly. For me, it was always the vision holding part, driving the vision, pitching the game, evangelizing it, the whole raising morale, and very often also I had the role of coming to save and rescue a project that was in the twilight of being cut completely, and had like one last 3 months or 6 months chance to prove itself. So it was more about like, okay, we got a lot of depressed people, and how can we get a lot of momentum now going?
No pressure.
No, it's what I try at. It sounds horrible to say, but I love that job because it's very clear goals to me. Because the game just has to look better every month after that. So then we just look where we are now and how make it one step better and one step better and one step better, and just make decisions. Usually it's always that the team has fallen into a state of limbo, stagnation, that they don't even want to make another decision because there's too many legacy decisions holding back, or maybe they already restarted 3 times and then no longer can shake it because it'll, like house of cards, it'll fall.
I think that's a really good point. Actually, sometimes it's not necessarily even about what the decision is. It's just about deciding to move forward and put something to bed.
Yeah, nobody likes to feel like they're aimless. So that's usually my job then, to kind of like relentlessly drive it forward, and also remind everybody that even though it's very important business that we do making games, it's not more important than being a human being and resting and having fun while you're doing the job as well.
Yeah. And recognizing that everyone in your team is like that as well. I think treating them properly. But I guess we can take a deeper dive into certain subjects as the week go on. I think that's pretty good kind of overview of our roles in our respective kind of careers so far.
Yeah, I think so as well. So thinking of that, what did you think of the art direction of the last season of Game of Thrones?
You dropped that one on me.
Yes.
Do you know, I thought there was some really good stuff. We watched the last one last night, but and this is actually, I think, something I feel about art stuff across the board, despite being an artist, it felt to me a bit style over substance at times. It was a bit like, whoa, there's this really cool shot we can do.
Yeah.
And instead of someone going, you probably lingered on that a bit too long, or maybe that doesn't really help that character development. Yeah, look at this, it looks awesome. Hey guys, and imagine when I can see people getting caught up in that. Like I was chatting to some friends over the weekend. I went to play poker with some friends. Someone wasn't at Series 8 yet, was catching up, and people were like, "Oh, you won't be disappointed by the end." And I was like, "Really? It's fucking rubbish." I was like, "What?" And I think I obviously had quite an extreme viewpoint, partly deliberately, but I could kind of see where they were coming from. They kind of got caught up in the spectacle, and it looks amazing. And some of the like choreography of battle sequences. Don't give too many spoilers, but I would imagine most people have seen it. You know, like the burning of the city and the way it kind of get cutting between.
You're totally right. It is style over substance. You know, it's no secret that there are no books out at the moment to get scenes and get dialogue, like character-driven action.
Yeah.
So the scenes have to be filled with visuals instead. And you know, I've been in projects like that. Rise as a project was all about that. We had no substance to the game, no gameplay, or neither in the story part either too much. And then every shot in the game had to be like Game of Thrones was now, like it has to be epic, has to be huge, has to be out of this world, and it gets really boring after a while because you get numb to it. If everything is heightened all the time, nothing really is. And it felt like we've forgotten with Game of Thrones all about the medieval references, like looking back at Western European medieval times, I don't think they had banners the size of like football fields or.
I know, right? I still have what the fuck? Oh, someone's been busy sewing that.
I know, they're like the unsullied banner team going around, climbing up. Like, so many men died just putting that banner up there, and I saw the concept art for that shot as well. Somebody posted on Twitter or like ArtStation, and you know, it looked like the shot. It was a beautiful concept art, and you know, I hate it, and I hate it as an art director. I hate seeing concept art be, you know, taken as one-to-one into a scene, because concept art never has any historical authenticity. It's just about looking cool. That's, you know, that, and being a concept artist by nature myself as well, that's what I did as well. Like, it's like make big ass castles and you get hired.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, we talked about. I was chatting to some other people, our mutual friends, about the second. I can't remember which episode it is. The big fight against the kind of walkers, the White Walkers, and when they send the Dothraki into the darkness, and it's like. Yeah,
it's like great military decisions.
It just annoyed the shit out of me. It was like, that's just the stupidest thing you could do. And it was like, I said to Lindsay, my wife, was like, blatantly, they're going to go for darkness, and then all the lights are going to go out, and it will look awesome. But
yeah, it's a great shot. Beautiful shot.
Cool, but just made no sense. I'm just like, just wasted and time. And then weirdly, there's still loads of them in the final episodes, despite it looking like they'd killed every single one. It was just I don't know. I'm quite I like things to make sense, which can be to my detriment at times, because I'm a bit like, I can't make that leap until I've got that connecting piece.
Well, that's a precedence with Game of Thrones heavily relying on Western European medieval, you know, design, and you know that. In the beginning, when Game of Thrones wasn't that big, they only had costume designers and maybe prop makers making the set pieces and all the really beautiful clothes. But because these are designed by people who look at their references from like historical costumes or real locations, they're not as wildly imaginative, and hence, you know, more grounded and they feel real, and it set that precedence that this show, this story, is about, you know, the real world of how gritty and how dangerous and how ugly at times the world can be.
It's like a mirror, wasn't it? You know,
yeah.
This is.
And now everybody's so fucking handsome and beautiful, and who dresses up like they do? Those clothes are like out of Star Wars, and it made me angry.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel quite sad about the end in some ways. Do you know what? I kind of watched it last night and it finished. And I was just like, I just don't really care. It's like I invested so much time into watching it, and at one point I was like, "It's the best TV show ever." And I just don't really, even throughout the episodes, I just don't really care. Even though I don't really care, because they cook the character out of so many of them, and their story arcs just became so bland. Like, unless it does something really shocking, which it didn't really. It's just like, wrap stuff up neatly, but yeah, it left me a bit slightly numb.
Yeah, and it saddens me because I do know a lot of people who worked on the project over the years, or even just lately as well, and I know that they're all great artists individually. It's just that the whole as a project has lost its roots.
It's just really odd, like particularly I think we've talked about the kind of time and the pacing of the entire series, and you look how long they spent to get to like series 7. Like a story spanning multiple series, and then it's just like everything sped up insanely to the point of like, and this all happened really quickly. And kind of the same in series 8. It's like they've got a lot to get through, so you kind of get through one episode and watch the next one, and then everything's already like a distant memory, despite some incredibly epic things happening. And in some ways, it was impressive the amount of stuff they managed to squeeze into the final series. But I don't know. I just felt it didn't allow characters to really, come to the end of their character arcs properly, and just left a lot of characters needing to be tied up, not literally. So yeah, interesting. I wonder how much of it is to do with obviously the books not being written.
Are you gonna read the last books when they come out? Are you a reader?
I've not read any of them, not because I didn't want to, just because I've never really got around to it, and then watched the show, and I'm a bit like, I don't know. It's rare I read a book and watch the show and like both. So in some ways, I think you're probably better off watching a show and then reading the book. I think that's maybe a better order. So maybe I'll be interested to see what happens in them. He's still writing them, right? So presumably,
yeah. There's two coming out.
I did not like that. Maybe I need to tweak it up.
You can read the spoilers online as well, I guess.
Yeah. Presumably, it's got to be a similar ending. I can't see it being.
We'll see. I'm hoping that it will rewrite the ending for me. But I'm a little bit selfish there. Maybe it won't.
We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good reaction to the ending from the internet at the moment, so the publisher / writer has a good chance to react to it still.
Yeah.
Let's try this out. I've been writing this book series for 20 years. I wonder if this is a good series ending. What if somebody does like a test trial for me?
We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, so that's about Game of Thrones art direction.
Yeah, what else has been going on? What else have you seen that's been cool?
Sorry, I got distracted. There's a question from the audience, Tom.
Okay.
Hannah Brady, hi Hannah, asks, can you talk about some shows that have great art direction supporting the story and stuff that you enjoyed? Smiley face. Thanks, Hannah. Thank you for the message. That's essentially what you asked, right?
Me?
No. Yes?
Sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's a good show. Yeah, that's a good question.
What is a good show? All right, I watched.
Actually, I thought the art direction was really good. I really like Stranger Things. I thought that did really well. Actually. I mean, it kind of goes beyond just the art direction, but for me, particularly because it kind of evokes a time and place that is dear to my heart, given my age. You can read between the lines there. Yeah.
How old are you?
Late 30s. So I remember riding around on my bike a lot. I thought they did a really good job of like setting up the two different worlds. What's it called? The Nether? I can't remember.
The Netherworlds.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of really cool and creepy. I thought all the creature design was, wasn't so ridiculous that it was unbelievable. So I thought that was really good, and with just kind of the sets and stuff, I thought it was really good attention to detail and like setting you in that world, potentially even if you hadn't already, grown up in that place. So apart from one episode in season 2, I've really liked really liked Stranger Things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Stranger Things is amazing, especially the first season when it's like a love letter to all the pulp movies from 80s. Not just Steven Spielberg's compositions and lightings from E.T., but also even referencing things like the aliens and a lot of other.
Yeah, cool, man. You can't beat some silhouetted, kids on their bicycles going through a forest and stuff. Just
Yeah,
I think credit to them as well. They did it, and it felt like an homage, and it felt nostalgic without just being like, man, you just ripped that off from a bunch of 80s music and movies. That's rubbish. I think they tonally got it really, really right.
yeah. A show that I've been watching lately is called The OA.
Yeah,
we recommended to you.
Yeah.
I feel like it's okay. It's not spectacular on the same level as Stranger Things is, because you set a really high bar there. But I do think with no winning there. But what I feel that OA is exemplary is in its consistency and in doing smart, budget-friendly design, choosing set locations that are mundane and easy to rent and film, but when combined with a really fantastical storyline, it makes it really a excellent juxtaposition and a great combination of just storytelling and visual arts as well. It's not nostalgic like Stranger Things is, but it is all around just very tight package.
Right, goes a bit fantastical, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, very fantastical, but in a very sensible way, which why it's so lovely and different. There's a lot of shows out at the moment that are like just trying to like push the volume of the loudness of the art direction and higher and higher by putting bigger effects and cooler costumes. And often these costumes are designed by concept artists again and not fashion designers, so it feels a little off-world. Yeah, this one is good. It gets my approval.
Yeah,
you should watch it.
Well, yeah. Now that we've finished watching Hannah, which we'd finished watching, which I really liked. I mean, not art direction-wise, it's nothing to shout about, but that's probably a good thing in a way. Like, it doesn't need anything flashy.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about art directing that it always has to be out of this world, and most of the time the challenge is to just get it not be annoying and not break things.
Not to go off on a tangent, I think that's often the way with comic books as well. Like, often you can have like the most amazing artist, and it is just crazy distracting. So, like, don't play. Whereas a lot of it, like Preacher Comics, Steve Dillon, just very consistent, really kind of easy to kind of read, but you take all this stuff in really quickly without it being glamorous. And like the Luna Brothers, I think are really good as well. They're not, not spectacular at all, but just the story flows really well. So anyway, I'm sorry, I've moved on to comics, but yeah, I think it totally supports what you're saying. Yeah, that was a good question. I was trying to think of some more. But
Pan's Labyrinth as a movie.
Yeah,
not a recent one, but that one is spectacular art direction again. Costumes are historical. Sets are very economical and moody and beautiful. And it's all supporting the story, never louder than the story.
Oh man, I'll tell you what I saw last week. I can't remember. So my brother bought me the art of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Which is really lovely. I've not seen the film. So
Me neither.
To the art book, I watched the film. I watched it with my son. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. My friend keeps telling that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my friend keeps telling me to watch it.
Yeah, it's like it gets a bit weird when all these different like spider men from different like alternate dimensions come in. So one of them's like a pig and one's like a girl with a robot and stuff. It's a bit anime. But the kind of kid who becomes Spider-Man, or a version of Spider-Man, he's just really cool. And he like does his own outfit because he does graffiti, so he spray paints his own outfit. It's just really cool. And he is good. My son was like, yeah, he's Wilson. But they also have there's like this crazy visual effects sequence at the end because they're like trying to cross dimensions or some shit like that. And it's just really good. It's really well done. And I'm like, it's one of these things we watch and go, man, how did they come up with that? How did they do that? Like, I can't really pick it apart in terms of like the visual, but it's so brilliantly done. And then even like the end credits, sometimes that stuff's really good, where they clearly just outsource it to a studio and go, so make a cool end credit sequence. It's just really fun and vibrant. I
like how realistic that brief was just there. Somebody probably gonna please make it cool.
Yeah, that's it. Cool and vibrant.
I wanted to ask you about your experiences about the indie games industry and art direction in general with it, because in the past 5 years or so, the standards have changed a little bit, right? What is even an indie game? I mean, it started out being like, oh, pixel graphics, not by as a aesthetic choice, but by we don't have any money for anything else, or like a designer could also make pixel art because they grew up with it and it made sense. But now it is a different world.
Yeah, it's crazy high bar. I mean, I think it's a hard one to classify. I think in some ways it's like, how much does this game cost? Oh, it's not, £40, $50, whatever. Therefore, it's, maybe it's 10, 15. It's like an indie game because it's a smaller budget. So you assume it's a smaller team. I think team size is still relevant. But, like Hellblade that came out from Ninja Theory did really well. That kind of, I think, Develop in Brighton won like best indie game of the year or something. It's like, we were sat there going, they're fucking indie studio. It's crazy. Like, really happy for them because we know a lot of them. But we're like, it's not really, that's quite a big studio. But, so I think the perspective is shifted slightly. I think there are a few different factors like game length and stuff as well. Particularly when all kind of AAA games now are, 40, 50, 60 hours long, open world. It's almost like anything that's not that is now in the indie pool. But you're right, like the benchmark's so high because of stuff like Inside and Oxenfree and what the Campo Santo guys are doing, like Firewatch, but then new one as well is going to look awesome.
Your game is done by two professional art directors with over 20 decades of experience together.
Yeah, our game hopefully looks pretty good as well. So yeah, there's just a lot of talent out there, and I think the accessibility of software and that community means that the standards just gone up as well. And actually, there's good people who float between studios doing freelance work, and there's just a lot of really talented people out there who make really good stuff, which is great, but also a challenge then to how you survive in that world when you're making your own thing too.
So we have another question from the audience. Ocean T. Bart asks, hey guys, what does a typical working day working as an art director look like? Do you guys still build art at times, or is your day mostly coordination and unifying the existing vision? It's a big question. I feel like some of that we want to leave for later episodes as well. But specifically, I'd like to ask you, Tom, like compared from AAA games and now your own studio, how much art do you do?
So now I do a lot more. Still not. Well, I think it's changed as the project's gone on. So at the start, it was kind of all I was doing. Well, art and design, so like game level design in terms of the gameplay. Now the team's growing, so there's kind of more management and business stuff to do. But so maybe like 50% of my week, I guess, is probably me doing my own stuff, which is pretty good. At Sony, that would be like me doing my own stuff, maybe 5% of the time. So like crazy. Even then, when I say my own stuff, it would have been, here's a quick scribble over the top of something, or preparing a brief, or and I think part of the problem, there were two facets to that. One, as I've mentioned, is like, well, me taking the time to do a really nice bit of concept art meant that I wasn't working with the team, and there were people there who could be doing that. Yeah. The other thing as well is kind of a slight snowball effect. Unless that's part of your kind of process or your working week consistently, you lose that skill a bit. Like you're not using that kind of drawing muscle or modeling muscle or whatever your kind of artwork is. So it therefore takes you longer to catch up, at which point you're taking even longer than perhaps someone on your team would have. So I think that was kind of where I fell, because of the kind of high demands of the projects I worked on. There was just a lot to do in terms of kind of management and setting briefs and working with the team and dealing with marketing and meetings and working with design. Just didn't really leave me that much time to sit down and do my own stuff. And kind of further to that is I didn't want to be one of those people who were like, I'm going to lock myself in a room now and you can't talk to me. Like, this is my drawing time or whatever. I'm not saying there are people like that, but I was in my mind, I was like, don't be that guy.
There are people like that. I can say that. Lots of people like that.
If you want to be available and you want to be able to answer questions or help with problems, it's hard to do your own stuff. Because like if you you'll see, if you watch this thing regularly, you'll recognize that I'm really bad at retaining information. But there's a fact or something with a study that if you get your concentration broken, it takes like another 20 minutes to get back to where you were in that task. It's something like that. It's kind of why email and messenger is the death of creativity. But hey, that's another podcast. So yeah, if you started doing a drawing and you're half an hour in and someone says, oh, I've got a problem, can you help? Then you go back and then another half an hour, someone like, maybe it doesn't seem like you're getting interrupted that often, but you're kind of only getting like 10 minutes of work properly done. So that was an issue for me.
I remember being in an art directors meeting in one of the big studios I worked in, and this subject was exactly the topic of discussion for like 2 hours of like 6 art directors in a circle trying to figure out how can we make more time for ourselves to make more art. Because that's the reason why we started this job, right? To make art and feel like we're also a positive influence to the game itself, not just as a project, but as artists as well. I ended up scheduling myself 2 or 4 hours, 2 hours every day. I just blocked out in my calendar like a never-ending, everyday repeating meeting that lasted 2 hours. That would mean that nobody could block meetings for that time slot for me. But at least if I was by my table, everybody could access me, or like so. I had a chance of doing some artwork as well. But then obviously, if you have more than 10 people working with you, the chances that 2 or 3 or 5 of them want to come and show you something that they've been doing and are looking for approval, then your desktop is going to be a busy table.
But I think there's 2 things I think that I'd like to add. I'll try and remember both of them. I think like on that point, structuring your week or like your day that you mean to go on and instilling a habit is a really good thing. And I probably didn't do that enough, or allow the circumstances to stop me from doing that. And you can.
I feel like most people allow the circumstances to stop, because there's so much going on, and then you are starting like ask yourself, what is more important on the bigger, like for these 100 or 20 people that are working for me? Am I contributing better by like unknotting a problem that can let 60 people now start working productively, or should I feel selfish and do a piece of a drawing?
Yeah, exactly. So there's, you have to balance it out. But there's a danger in like large studios that you kind of get pulled into more meetings than you probably need to, and spend more time doing, production type stuff. Feels like it's progressing things, but isn't necessarily. But then I guess the other thing I'd say is like I kind of made peace with it all. I think there's a danger it can come across as like this is a bad thing. I only got to do artwork occasionally at work, but I kind of saw my job as like, well, I'm helping the team to make something really good, and my job is to get everyone to make all their artwork into something that looks great. Yeah. And so it didn't actually matter to me that I hadn't necessarily done the concept art for that bit, or modeled that bit of the environment. It was kind of like, well, actually, I've helped that the team get to that point. So I took kind of pride in that side of it. And also I kind of made sure that I just did stuff in my own time.
Yeah.
So
how did you do stuff on your time?
It's different now, because this is where the interesting where the kind of switches happen. So when I was in a studio life, I went to work, did work in a building, left that work, and then came home, and then could kind of have different creative life. So a lot of the stuff I did then was nothing to do with computers or anything. I did lots of painting and different kind of exhibitions and stuff. So one of the things I did was I live in a place called Ely that has a massive cathedral. We did a big exhibition about it was called The Secret Life of Ely Cathedral, and I did portraits of lots of members of the choir, because they're like these young kids who lived in this amazing Harry Potter type house that was really old. They were all I don't know, 8 to 13 or something. So it's kind of like a look at them as kids, not just in all their gowns looking like crazy professionals. It's like, hey, they're just kids. So there was like a series of oil paintings. And that was super cool, because it's just nothing to do with work, it's my own thing, doing my own time. And actually, kind of going back to what you were saying about getting respect from the team, people at work saw that, and it's like, okay, he's not completely useless, he can do some pretty good paintings. So that, I think that helped feed into that stuff. It might not be like, oh, he's doing game art, but at least
you're staying active,
exactly,
relevant to culture.
And I think this is kind of a certain level of you see people on Twitter doing their own thing, and they're like, man, that's inspiring. I want to do that. I want to have my own sketchbook or journal or whatever. So that was that. Now my world is I work from home, and my hours are much more irregular. So, and we're making a game, and it's a smaller team, so it's kind of there's a lot, and I'm doing far more artwork on that. So I don't really feel the need to have a separate artwork related project. Partly because a lot of my spare time I spend on this, which is my choice. But also I'm kind of creatively pretty tired from making this game, and doing artwork and game design for that. So I'm the headspace to do another project or something is not really there. So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting in terms of how the dynamic shifted a bit. Man, that answer took a weird.
No, it's good. It was very good. I had very similar experiences to you did, in the sense that when I was in the studio, I was very protective of my working hours, of never staying overtime or crunching, because I felt like that's why we schedule things, and then fortunately was able to never crunch. And instead, I always took 2 hours before work to work on my personal creative projects.
Yeah, crunch is a good topic.
Yeah, we'll leave that for.
Yeah.
I Yeah, we'll leave that for later times, because I think we've seen crunch. We might have experienced crunch one way or another as well, so it's very relevant.
It's a dog.
But just like you as well, I see a cat there. Where's the dog? Ah, it's a dog.
Yeah, it's our dog. It's all right. It's not just a stray wandered in from the street.
Just like you as well. Like when I started doing, my own stuff. Like when I left the active studio life to be a freelancer or work on my own project with my wife. It took quite a while before I could be as productive with it as I was before, when I still worked in a company structure where my life was super structured and very easy to kind of motivate yourself to work on your personal project, because you had so few hours to work on your personal stuff. And now I've sort of I know that I've slotted my personal project into the mental space that was the professional work, and you kind of like, you take the demons from your previous professional, like that slot, and just put your own personal stuff in, and you kind of like start to get the same anxieties or difficulties as you had before, and I'm trying to find a way around that. One way is to break my day even more by doing more fun small projects like this with you now, and kind of not allowing one project to ever become a behemoth as big as what my 9 to 5 work was before.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we'll see how it goes. It's still in a practice run cycle, but I should have some findings in about half a year.
Tune in 6 months then.
Yes, next episode. 2 episodes per year.
Awesome. Do we want to? I don't know how long we've been talking, but
we've been talking about an hour, a little over. What was the hardest thing for you as art directors? This is a question from the audience.
That's a good question, actually. I was going to ask you that earlier, and I forgot. I have an answer for that.
Me too.
Thing for me was people expecting you to just have the answer all the time. Be like, what should this look? I don't know this isn't working. Like, what? How should I get this design to work? And just like, fucking, I've literally just seen it. Like, I can't just think of it like that. You have a good idea.
I've learned to kind of adjust to those situations of just like holding a stone face for a really long time, and I start to make like this weird mumble, like, and kind of like buying time. I was just looking thoughtful. I know the answer to this one. I'm just
quite. I mean, I think what I thought I do was kind of either entering a kind of conversation about it, which buys you a bit more time, or trying to understand where they're coming from, so you kind of get the facts.
Yeah, you can always ask, what's the bigger picture of this thing?
Exactly. Or what have you tried? What do you think? But then also just being honest. Like, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to say I don't know, and I'll just say I don't know. I'm happy to go away and kind of think about it, and I'll come back with some more direction. But yeah, and I think people started to kind of respect that. Obviously, you get to the point where you just go, I don't know, walk off all the time. That doesn't work. But actually being like, I don't have all the answers, and that's fine. You don't have all the answers. Like, you're not supposed to. But we can. There's a process.
Yes, you are, Tom. That's your role. That's your job.
Well, yeah.
What are you good for otherwise?
Just being real. No. But like I said, I think
motivational.
You can actually have a conversation about stuff instead, rather than you just feeding an answer to someone and get them a bit more engaged. And but yeah, not to say it worked all the time. So, but that was tough. And I actually had like leads coming to me and saying like, people just ask me what the solution is. And so I don't know. There's one guy we worked with, and his thing was like, just tried turning it upside down, and it'd be like if it was some concept art or something someone was working on. Just turn upside down. And actually, a lot of the time it didn't really get turned upside down. That was like, we took the mick out of him, but it's like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I have a tendency as well, like when somebody asks, like, "What do you think?" or something like that. If you just like walk past, you want to see, and obviously your artists want to know what you think of it. Are you approving or disapproving? So they don't have to, make any mistakes, or everybody wants to know what their boss thinks of the work that they're doing at that moment. So just like any good pigeon art director, I also love to like hover behind their shoulders and like say a few shitty things and then fly away. But I quickly learned that that's a really, really bad habit. Instead of like trying to direct them immediately there in the moment, I kind of like ask them to send me the image for me to look at it for a second, and then I'll get you back with the right notes.
Yeah,
It's like buying time again.
Yeah, it is one of the. I think it's like face-to-face feedback is hard, particularly if something's not very good.
Yeah, that's the toughest one.
You're like, oh man, you spent a couple of days on this, and I've been doing other stuff, and I just realised you spent this long on it, and it is really not what I thought it was going to be, or this isn't going to work, and you're like, how do I talk about that in a way crush you, or make you hate me, or make you hate the project, or even kind of go, well, what's the kind of construct,
And it's important for people to understand that art directors don't want to crush their artists, because our success is tied into the artist's happiness and productivity.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that you don't necessarily get trained for, is like it's people skills and it's management skills, and everyone's different, and people react to things differently. So you have to try and gauge the personality, try and think about how best to talk to them about the work, and yeah, kind of. Some people will be fine. They'll be like, yes, okay, I'll just do another drawing, and they're ready to go. And other people will not be like that, and will. Yeah.
It depends as well if you can track a little bit in your mind how have they been like doing with their last 3 paintings, for example, or last 3 3D models. How long have they been stuck as well? Because everybody needs little victories every now and then. Sometimes I let a bad concept work pass just to build momentum and kind of like then say like, okay, we'll come back later in my mind. Because usually like no one thing holds the whole production. If you're lucky, if you have a backlog, a buffer.
Yeah. So I think that's just the human side of it. I think it's probably an underexplored aspect. Again, maybe another topic. My soundbite now, but yeah, that's hard, because that is a big part of the job. At the end of the day, you've got to course correct, and then things don't go well. Like always found it a lot easier dealing with outsourcers. It's just like you get sent some work, particularly if it's from a different time zone. You get sent a bunch of stuff. Then I'm like, I'm not really under pressure to reply straight away because they're all asleep. I can take it, write some notes, write an email. I can be fairly blunt, and or I've got time to consider feedback and get some reference. And it's like, hey, fine, that's easy.
That's true.
Potentially, you're dealing with an in between anyway, so you're not having a direct face-to-face conversation with an artist who's really happy with a bit of work, and you're like, oh, you've got to know. So I think that's a really tough part of the job, isn't it?
It's true.
Some people shy away from too, and that is not the way to deal with it.
My hardest experience as an art director was firing people, especially when it wasn't because they were necessarily underperforming or anything like that, but because the company was going down and there were cuts were needed to be done. And the hardest moment was also when the dilemma was then, okay, we need to make cuts, and I was part of firing a person who also had trying to remember. It was a deadly disease. So basically, there was a time limit potentially, and kind of like the human side of you is at odds when you also have to balance that with the productivity. Obviously, you know that society as a whole will take care of its individual, especially in Germany, where there's very good medical care and social care as well. But it is horrible to be part of something like that as well.
Yeah, that's rough.
And then you can't really justify not doing it when there are 20 other people that you also have to take care of, and whose success is tied to the success of the group. So sometimes our problems are there's little vanity things like how do I say constructive feedback without hurting somebody's emotions. Other times it's about having direct responsibility of someone's whole life or career, and the single decision that you do can change it fully.
Yeah. I mean, I've been involved in redundancies and stuff, and those conversations, and not to the scale of like life or death like you, but being involved in performance management and things like that, and it's just not fun. It's really not nice, particularly when you like the people involved on a personal level, want them to do well, but it's not going to work. And I think that certainly we found at Sony, I think we had a lot of not a lot, because the industry's grown so quickly and moved on so quickly. We had people who worked on like original PlayStation games and stuff.
Yeah.
Like working on a PlayStation game to doing a PS4 game. It's just like they're just different jobs. So like to particularly try and keep your skill set relevant and up to date, and actually be able to do as well as someone who's just coming out of uni, fresh off the boat with all the latest software. Right, it's really
hard. It's really hard.
So we definitely kind of came across that, and some people, managed to evolve and survive, but others, I think, struggle with that, and that's difficult, particularly if then they're kind of in positions of, higher seniority, just through nature of being there a long time. How you kind of deal with that dynamic in the team, maybe having juniors who are potentially better, but not getting paid as much. Yeah, all that stuff's tough. I don't really have a great answer for you.
I think it definitely filled the slot of hardest things being an art director.
Turns out quite a few things.
Yeah. So then there's obviously the little things like sleepless nights, having to worry about the next day before you even started.
Yeah.
Getting really addicted to coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, quite. Yeah, having too many emails to read.
I started getting really afraid as well of my health after hitting 30, because that's the danger moment when males tend to become more prone to heart attacks and things like that. And I wasn't like a great sleeper ever, and with a lot of work, and didn't help. Started getting gray hair very early, like in my 29 already. I was very. I'm 31 now, and I'll be apparently, according to my wife, I'll be a handsome silver fox one day soon.
Yeah, stress, man. It takes its toll in bad ways. Particularly if you're carrying the load across, projects. It's your responsibility. That's really hard.
But it's also, it's also nice that if you do it properly, and if you do enjoy the ride, it is your credit in the end as well to say that you did this. You were responsible for tying so many people, so many thoughts, so many arguments together, and to get it out in a successful way. And we're able to help and push the project and do what you enjoy doing the most as well. Because even though I complain that I don't get to paint enough or do enough art while on a project. I still prefer the art director part to being a concept artist. Maybe it's because I'm very neurotic and I love control.
Some people like to just be given something and spend 8 hours a day, just focusing on that one task and doing it to a really good ability. Other people, I was always like, I like being involved. I like knowing what the bigger picture is. I like having a say. So it was kind of, it felt natural to me to move up into those kind of positions. Yeah. Do we want to start wrapping things up?
Yeah, we should.
Next chat. Game,
Sorry?
I've got a game to make.
Oh, what are you doing today?
I'm making.
Give us a little glimpse into the world of an indie co-founder / art director.
So we're prepping a trailer at the moment. We've got the shot placement sorted. I'm just polishing.
Sorry, trailer for what?
I can't say. Because we're in publisher. It's going to be released soon. It's a new trailer of some newer footage from the game, and we know which shots we want, but some of them I'm not happy with. So I'm kind of making them more epic. So there's a sequence where the character kind of runs up a mountain path, and it's kind of cool, but I wanted to push it a bit more and make it more dramatic. So I've changed the style of rocks and the lighting, and trying to make a cooler, distant mountain. So I'm on attempt 3, I think, of making a good distant mountain. So today's the day I'm going to crack it. I think because I keep taking shortcuts and not really spending enough time on it.
You can do it. You can do it. You after this podcast, you'll feel re-energized.
Yeah.
Invigorated.
So I'll let you know on the next one how it went.
Awesome. Cool. Love to see the new trailer.
Yeah, not long, hopefully. That's cool. It's a good one. Cool.
All right. Thank you, Tom. That was great. So
Thank you,
we'll do a little call next week again, Tuesday.
Yeah.
We might do it a little bit earlier because I'm going to be out of town. If you're okay with it.
Yeah.
12 or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll ring. Bye, everyone.
Cheerio.